The day I found out I was pregnant, I overheard my boyfriend's twin brother saying something that made my blood freeze. Please stay with me as I tell you my story, and please don't forget to support our channel by subscribing, liking, and sharing with your loved one. I had taken the test early that morning. I was alone in the bathroom, sitting on the cold tile floor, staring at 2 pink lines that would change everything. At first, I couldn't believe it. I read the instructions over and over just to be sure. My hands were shaking. I cried, but not out of fear. It felt like joy. I was going to be a mom. I smiled, thinking about how happy Jake would be. He always said he wanted kids one day. I thought, this is perfect. I thought, we're ready. I thought he loves me. Since it was Jake's birthday, I decided to tell him that night. I wrapped the test in a small box with a red ribbon and a note that said, "You're going to be a dad." I imagined his face lighting up when he opened it. I was nervous, but excited. That evening, his twin brother, Tyler, arrived early to help set up. Jake and Tyler looked nearly identical. Same dark eyes, same smirk, same voice if you weren't paying close attention. But I always believed I could tell them apart. Jake was softer, more gentle. Tyler liked to tease. He had a sharper edge. Jake hadn't come home yet. Tyler and I were setting up the table, lighting candles, and laughing about how Jake always ran late. I stepped into the hallway to grab my phone charger from the bedroom, and as I came back, I heard them talking. The kitchen door was almost closed, but I could hear them clearly. Tyler said, "Dude, remember when I pretended to be you that night?" She didn't even notice. I stopped walking. My breath caught in my throat. Jake answered, laughing, "Yeah, I still can't believe we pulled that off. You sure she doesn't suspect anything?" Tyler said, "She's in love. She wouldn't know the difference even now." My mind went blank. My heart started pounding. I couldn't make sense of what I was hearing. Pretended to be him? What night? Were they joking? No, they weren't. I felt like the walls were closing in. I looked down and saw the gift box still in my hand. My fingers slipped, and it fell to the floor. The glass perfume bottle inside shattered. The sound made both of them stop talking. Jake came out into the hallway and looked at me. "Hey babe, you okay?" I forced a smile and nodded. I told him I tripped. He didn't question it. I picked up the box, shoved the test into my pocket, and told them I had to go out for a bit. I walked out the door without looking back, and when I reached my car, I sat behind the wheel and just stared ahead. I was pregnant, and now I didn't even know whose child I was carrying. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there staring at the ceiling, trying to trace back every memory, every moment that felt slightly off but I had brushed aside. I kept thinking, was it really the first time they switched, or had it happened before? How many moments had I shared with someone who wasn't Jake? There was this one time, a few months into our relationship. Jake had come over late, or at least I thought it was Jake. He kissed me, but something was off. The way he touched my hair, the way he held me, it didn't feel the same. I asked if everything was okay, and he just smiled and said, "You ask too many questions." Then he kissed me again, harder, like he was trying to shut me up. I laughed it off then, told myself he was just tired or stressed. But that night never sat right with me. Another time, I had shown Jake a photo from a weekend trip we took together, and he looked confused. He said, "That wasn't me. I think you're mixing it up." I thought he was joking. I remember laughing and calling him weird, and he just shrugged and changed the subject. I let it go. I didn't want to seem crazy. But now, that moment plays in my head like a warning I ignored. There were little things too. A shift in the way he texted. One day he'd send long messages, full of warmth and silly emojis, and the next he'd barely respond. I once asked if he was okay, if something had changed, and he blamed work. Said he was under pressure, asked me to be patient. He wrapped it up in soft words. "You're the only one who understands me." I believed him. But now, it feels like he was training me to ignore my instinct. I thought I knew his scent, the rhythm of his breathing, the way he always rubbed his thumb against mine when we held hands. But there were days when that didn't happen. Days when I'd reach for his hand and he'd pull away or act distracted. I thought maybe he was just tired. Maybe I was overthinking. I didn't realize love had made me second-guess myself more than him. There was also Tyler's behavior, always around, always watching. He used to wink at me sometimes or say things like, "You're too good for my brother." I thought he was just being a jerk, the way brothers tease. But now I wonder if that was him pushing boundaries, testing how far he could go without me noticing. I remember a night when I got home early and found Jake, or who I thought was Jake, already inside cooking. I hugged him from behind, and he froze for half a second before laughing. "You scared me," he said. I felt his heartbeat racing. I thought it was cute. I didn't realize it was guilt. Looking back, I think I caught the truth 100 times. But each time I wrapped it in excuses. I wanted our love to be real more than I wanted to face the cracks in it. Love doesn't always protect you. Sometimes it blinds you. And I had been walking around with my eyes closed, thinking I was safe, while the people closest to me were playing games behind my back. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything or demand answers. I just became quiet. Too quiet. On the outside, I was still the same, the smiling fiancée, the girl in love. But inside, I was unraveling. I stopped talking to friends as much. I avoided eye contact. I laughed in all the right places and said all the right things, but I was somewhere else completely. Like I had left my body and was watching someone else pretend to live my life. I started disappearing into the bathroom more often. Not just for the pregnancy. I would go in, lock the door, and just sit on the floor with the fan running so no one could hear me cry. Sometimes I would turn on the faucet to cover the sound of me gasping for. I couldn't get that conversation out of my head. Their voices, their laughter, the way Jake said she's in love, she wouldn't know. He was talking about me like I was stupid, like I was a game. One night, I stared at my reflection in the mirror for so long I forgot to blink. I looked like someone I didn't know anymore, someone smaller, like I'd shrunk to fit the lie I was living in. That night I opened my laptop and started looking for ways out. Not just emotionally, literally. I checked flights, cities I'd never been to, places where I didn't know a single soul. I cleared my browser history right after. Every time. The wedding was weeks away. Dresses were being tailored, flowers chosen, venues confirmed. His mom kept sending me photos of cake options. My inbox was full of seating charts and bridal playlists. I responded to everything like normal. Smiley faces, exclamation points. I even told Jake I was more in love than ever. He believed me. I made sure of it. But underneath all that, I was planning an escape. Not because I was afraid of confrontation. I just knew the kind of people I was dealing with. They were smooth liars. Twins. One face with two masks. I didn't want a scene. I didn't want to be talked down or guilt out of leaving. I wanted to vanish before they even realized I was gone. I bought a one-way ticket under a different name. Cash only. Flight booked for the night of the wedding, right after the reception was supposed to end. I found a short-term rental 2 hours outside a quiet town. No neighbors, no cameras, no one asking questions. Just me and whatever came next. I started packing little by little. Things Jake wouldn't notice missing. A sweater here, a photo there. I hid them under the spare tire in my car trunk. I even practiced smiling in the mirror while my hands were shaking, just so I wouldn't slip. People say heartbreak is loud. Mine wasn't. It was silent, careful, controlled. I had to survive before I could heal. And for now, survival looked like a smile, a dress fitting, and a lie I wore better than any veil. If someone had walked in and seen me that week, they would have said I was glowing. I smiled when I was supposed to, nodded during tastings, complimented the flower arrangements. Everyone said I looked like the happiest bride-to-be. I let them think that. Jake's mother was in full event planner mode, treating the wedding like it was some royal affair. Every detail had to be perfect. The napkin folds, the custom embroidery on the tablecloths, even the scent of the candles. She called me 3 times a day with updates. I said, wow, a lot. I said thank you even more. But each time I hung up, I stared at the wall like it wasn't real. Jake was no different. He kept sending me flowers, surprising me with breakfast in bed, whispering sweet things about how excited he was to spend forever with me. His hands touched me like I was made of gold. But every touch made my skin crawl. I had to fight not to flinch. The same man who once stood beside his brother, laughing about tricking me, now looked at me like I was his prize. He kissed my forehead like nothing had ever happened. Maybe in his mind, nothing had. I started keeping notes on my phone, all locked behind a password only I knew. I wrote everything down. What time Jake came home. What he said. If he smelled different. If he touched me differently. I wasn't looking for more proof. I just needed to stay sharp. I was living in a house of mirrors, and I couldn't afford to lose my grip on what was real. Even the little things started feeling like traps. When Jake took me to dinner, I watched the way he ordered for me without asking. When we went shopping, he picked out dresses he liked and told me I'd look beautiful in them, not once asking what I liked. I used to think that was sweet. Now I saw it for what it was, control wrapped in charm. At the final wedding rehearsal, everyone clapped and laughed when Jake pulled me in for a kiss at the end of the aisle. My cheeks hurt from smiling. His brother stood nearby, clapping too, eyes never leaving mine. He winked. I didn't react. I kept playing the part. Every gift Jake gave me, I kept. Every note, every card, every recorded voice message. I made backups of everything. Not because I needed them yet, but because something in me knew the time would come. He once wrote, "You're the best thing that ever happened to me." I stared at that message for a long time. Was that Jake? Or Tyler pretending? Did it even matter? They had taken something from me. Not just my trust, but my sense of self. And I was going to take something back. Everyone thought I was planning a wedding. I was planning a war. It was raining that evening. Not a storm, just a light, steady drizzle that made everything feel slower and more muffled than usual. I came home a little earlier than planned. My shoes were soaked, and my fingers were numb from holding the umbrella. I remember thinking how quiet the apartment was, no music, no TV. Just the soft patter of rain against the windows. Jake, or who I thought was Jake, was sitting on the couch with a hoodie pulled low over his face, staring at his phone. He looked up when I came in and smiled. A small, lazy smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Hey babe," he said. His voice was off, just slightly. The words were right, but the tone had a strange edge to it, like someone doing an impression of Jake instead of just being him. I froze near the door, keeping my umbrella closed in one hand and my purse tight in the other. He stood up, walked over, and kissed my cheek. No thumb on my back, no squeeze of my hand, just a dry, empty gesture. "Long day?" he asked, moving to hang up my coat before I could answer. That's when I knew. It wasn't Jake. I kept my voice light, pretending to stretch. "You cut your hair?" I asked, already pulling out my phone, setting it to record behind the scarf in my bag. He paused just a little. "Yeah," he said, touching the back of his head. "This morning." Wrong answer. Jake had cut his hair 3 days ago. I watched him do it in the mirror while brushing my teeth. I turned to face him fully. My heartbeat was steady, slow, but something in my eyes must have shifted. His smirk widened, just a crack. "Gotcha," I whispered. He didn't even flinch. Just rolled his shoulders and sat back down on the couch like it was no big deal. "Relax," he said. "It's not like you can tell us apart anyway." There it was. Said like a joke, but meant like a knife. I stepped forward. "How many times?" He gave me a look, playful, almost bored. "Does it matter?" he said. "You didn't notice." I could have slapped him, screamed, thrown something, but instead, I reached into my bag and pressed stop. He didn't see it. Instead, he leaned back, arms stretched across the back of the couch. If Jake knew how easy you were to fool, he might be more careful. I didn't say a word. I just turned, walked straight to the bedroom, and closed the door behind me. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I sat on the floor, listening to the sound file over and over again. Every word burned into my memory. It was no longer just betrayal. It was proof. And for the first time since everything started, I felt something solid form inside me. Not pain. Not panic. Fire. The dress hung on the back of the door like it was waiting to swallow me whole. White, delicate, covered in lace and tiny pearls. Picked out months ago when I still believed in the fairy tale. I stared at it for a long time before touching it. My fingers were calm. My heart wasn't. Outside, the world was buzzing with excitement. I could hear music floating in from the garden, voices laughing, cameras clicking, people calling my name. My makeup was perfect. My hair was curled and pinned just the way Jake liked. I looked like a bride. But I wasn't. I was someone else now. I slipped the dress on slowly, like armor. Pulled the zipper up my back like loading a weapon. Tied the ribbon at my waist like drawing a line in the sand. Everything fit perfectly. Of course it did. I had been preparing for this moment far longer than anyone realized. In the mirror, I looked like I belonged in a romance movie. But all I saw was a girl standing at the edge of something she could never come back from. Once, I thought this day would be about vows and promises and forever. I used to picture myself walking down the aisle with tears in my eyes, overwhelmed with happiness. I used to imagine Jake crying too, whispering how lucky he was. Instead, the only vow I held onto was this. I would not let them take anything more from me. No more lies. No more pretending. This wasn't a wedding anymore. It was a final act. A last performance in a play they didn't even know was ending. I thought about Tyler's smirk, Jake's fake affection, the way they twisted trust into a game. And I thought about the child growing inside me. Unasked for. Uncertain. But still mine. And I refused to let my baby's story begin in silence. The dress suddenly felt heavy. It clung to me like memory, like guilt. I pressed my hands against my stomach and took a long breath. My skin was cold, but my spine was steady. I picked up the USB from the vanity, slipped it into my bouquet. It was small, almost invisible, but it weighed more than anything else I carried. On it was the recording, Tyler's voice, his confession, the truth in his own words. I didn't know what would happen once I played it. Maybe chaos, maybe denial, maybe silence. But it didn't matter anymore. My shoes clicked softly against the wooden floor as I walked out of the room. Each step felt final. I passed the hallway where Jake first kissed me, the kitchen where Tyler once smiled at me like a secret, the living room full of wrapped gifts and flowers and cards that said forever. All of it meant nothing now. As I stepped into the waiting car, I looked back once. Not at the house, but at the girl I used to be, the one who believed in love, who ignored every red flag, who thought I do would fix everything. She was gone. I wasn't a bride. I was the storm. The music started, soft and sweet, the kind that was meant to make people cry for all the right reasons. The guests stood. Every pair of eyes turned toward me. Smiles bloomed across familiar faces. Some people even looked emotional. Cameras were raised. Phones captured every second. And there I was, walking down the aisle in silence, holding a bouquet with more than just flowers inside. Jake waited at the end, dressed in a perfect suit, wearing the same grin he always used when he wanted to charm a room. His hands were clasped, eyes shining, like he truly believed this was going to be the best day of our lives. I looked right at him and I smiled, not because I was happy, but because I was ready. Every step felt like I was walking toward the edge of something final. My heels clicked against the aisle runner. I could hear the rustle of dresses, the shifting of chairs, people whispering things like, "She looks stunning. They're perfect. Finally, their big day." None of them knew what was coming. I reached the altar. Jake reached for my hand. I gave it to him. It was warm, steady, calm. The officiant welcomed everyone, began the usual words: love, trust, partnership forever. Jake squeezed my fingers. And that's when I pulled away. Just a small movement. Just enough. "I need a moment," I said, loud enough for the microphone to catch. There was a ripple in the crowd. A nervous laugh from someone in the back. Jake's expression twitched, confusion showing for the first time. I turned to the table behind me, where the laptop and projector had been quietly set up for our photo montage. The slideshow was supposed to show pictures of our life together, vacations, birthdays, the proposal. That was the plan. Except I had changed the plan. I pulled the USB from my bouquet, plugged it in, and tapped the spacebar. At first, nothing but black. Then the audio kicked in. Tyler's voice filled the room. Casual, smug. "Dude, remember when I pretended to be you that night?" She didn't even notice. Gasps cut through the air. A few people turned in their seats. Some stood. Jake stepped forward, voice low. "What are you doing?" I didn't answer. Tyler's voice continued. "She's in love. She wouldn't know the difference even now." Then Jake's recorded reply. "Yeah. I still can't believe we pulled that off." The room erupted. A chorus of disbelief. His mother covered her mouth. His father stood. A bridesmaid dropped her bouquet. Tyler, sitting in the third row, had gone pale. Jake reached for the laptop, but I stepped in front of him. "I'm pregnant," I said, raising my voice. "And I don't even know which one of you is the father." That was the moment everything shattered. People started yelling. Chairs scraped. Someone started crying. Jake tried to speak, but I turned my back on him. "I loved you," I said quietly, not to him, but more to myself. "But love isn't blind. It's just too trusting." Then I walked away. Slow, deliberate. Not running. Not hiding. Just done. The air outside the venue was heavy with noise. Voices calling my name. Footsteps behind me. Chaos building. But I didn't turn around. I kept walking, one step at a time, through the rows of parked cars and down the narrow path toward the street. No tears. No shaking hands. Just silence. My dress, still white and elegant, now felt weightless. It floated around my legs with every step like it was trying to slow me down, but I wouldn't let it. I didn't look back at the building where it all had just happened, the gasps, the shouts, the truth hitting them like thunder. Let them stay in that moment. I was already leaving it behind. A yellow taxi waited near the curb, engine running. The driver glanced at me through the rearview mirror, eyes wide for a second, like he wasn't expecting a bride. But he said nothing. He got out, opened the trunk, and quietly placed my 2 small suitcases inside. "Airport, right?" he asked. I nodded. "Terminal B." The door clicked shut behind me. Inside the cab, it was warm and still. I leaned my head back against the seat and closed my eyes. For the first time in weeks, I let myself breathe. Not cry. Not panic. Just breathe. The city blurred past the window as we drove. I watched it all without really seeing it. Buildings, lights, strangers walking by with their coffees and conversations. Life going on, completely unaware of the mess I'd just walked away from. My phone buzzed once. Then again. I didn't check. Instead, I unlocked it, found Jake's name, and held my finger on it until the delete contact option appeared. One tap. Gone. Next, I blocked him. Then Tyler. Then his mother. His sister. Anyone who might try to understand or talk things through. There was nothing left to explain. I had given them the truth. What they did with it wasn't my problem anymore. At the airport, I moved through security like a ghost. People smiled at the dress. Some whispered, probably thinking I'd been left at the altar or changed my mind at the last second. No one imagined the truth. No one would ever guess what I had walked away from. The flight was short. A 2-hour trip north, followed by a quiet drive through winding roads lined with trees and fog. I didn't speak to the second driver much. Just handed him the printed address of the cabin and watched the woods grow thicker the farther we went. When we finally pulled up to the small wooden house nestled between tall pines, I felt something shift inside me. Not relief. Not peace. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that feels like a clean page. The cabin was small, simple. 1 bedroom, a fireplace, big windows that looked out over a frozen lake. No Wi-Fi. Barely any cell service. Exactly what I wanted. Exactly what I needed. I stood in the doorway for a while, still in my dress, still holding my phone like it might ring one more time. It didn't, so I powered it off and placed it in a drawer. No more calls. No more lies. Just me. And whatever came next. The days in the cabin were slow, quiet, and bare. No background noise, no voices, no question. Just silence, and the sound of my own breath, steadying a little more each morning. There were no clocks I had to race, no phones ringing, no mirrors I had to smile into. For the first time in what felt like years, I wasn't pretending. I was simply being. My body changed little by little. The pregnancy moved forward, whether I was ready or not. At first, I avoided looking at myself. I was afraid of what I'd feel. But something unexpected happened. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel regret. The life growing inside me felt separate from everything else. It didn't carry the weight of betrayal. It didn't ask questions. It simply existed, quietly, softly. And in that softness, I found space to breathe again. I cooked when I was hungry, slept when I was tired, sat by the window and watched the snow fall until it melted. I didn't make plans. I didn't make lists. I let the silence do what it needed to do. Some nights were harder than others. Memories came without warning. A word, a gesture, the way the floor creaked when I walked barefoot, it would all bring something back. But the pain didn't take over like it used to. It passed through, then moved on. And each time I stayed standing. I talked to the baby sometimes, not with big declarations or forced sweetness. Just simple things. You're safe. We're okay. I've got you. And I meant every word. I didn't know what kind of future was waiting for me. I didn't have a grand plan. But I knew one thing for sure. I had saved myself. Quietly, without drama, without screaming. I had walked out of something cruel and stood up without anyone holding my hand. The baby was no longer a question mark. It was a reminder of what I had survived. Not a scar, something more like a root. Something anchoring me to this new version of life. One I built myself. No one clapped. No one posted about it. But I knew what I had done. And I knew who I was becoming. 1 year later, I'm still standing. Not just surviving, but thriving. I live quietly now, somewhere peaceful. Just me and my baby. No noise, no chaos, no lies. I started something of my own. A small business that grew faster than I expected. I work on my own terms. I sleep without fear. And I wake up to soft giggles and tiny hands reaching for. This is my world now, calm, honest mine. Jake and Tyler? They lost everything. After the wedding video went viral, people saw them for who they really were. Their names became warnings. They were fired, exposed, humiliated. Not because I chased revenge, but because the truth eventually did what it always does. It came out. I never called them, never replied, never explained myself. Some people asked how I could just disappear, how I stayed so quiet. But I didn't need to make noise. Because my life, this peace, this joy, this freedom, is the loudest answer I could give. If someone like me, hurt like that, can build something this whole, so can you. You don't need revenge when your life becomes everything they said you'd never have.